We continue here on The Pulse. It seems we can't go a day without talking about Eskom. And the CSIR has now released its latest research into power cuts and power generation.
Load shedding in the first half of 2022 was roughly 10 times worse than the stage 6 power cut we had in 2019. The long bar on your right shows just how extreme that period of load shedding was.
And within 2022, September was by far the worst month, with the amount of time spent on stage 3 and stage 4 load shedding.
Then on the extreme right of this graph, you can see whole days on stage 3 and stage 4. And the thick red line of, you guessed it, stage 6. We seldom moved into the green of stage 2 during that time.
Although most of the power came from coal and just a slight dip in the nuclear supply from Koeberg, the good news is that we're getting some supply from solar and wind, even though it's just 5 to 7%.
Wind farms are now supplying the bulk of alternative energy coming into the grid.
Well, for more on that research, I'm joined by Warrick Pierce, principal researcher at the CSIR. Warrick, what's fascinating about this research is that, of course, as South Africans, we've already lived through the load shedding, but to see how it has been, put and articulated through this research, it seems to be completely different.
Yeah, well, that's the one good thing with just working with the numbers. We don't, it's not emotional at all. So we just take the data that Eskom provides, and then we track. We've been tracking load shedding for quite some time now, and as you've mentioned earlier, just the first, actually by July of this year, we exceeded the amount of load shedding from the previous year, so the previous 2021.
As researchers, what did you find were, I don't want to say some of the more surprising things, but things that really raised eyebrows in as far as just the movements of load shedding and its severity as you were doing this research?
So, just comparing the years, so for the first 9 months up until September, as it's been published there, the amount of load shedding was more than double the previous year. So we're seeing quite a big step change here. The other factor which is going in the wrong, trending the wrong way, is the energy availability factor, which keeps on reducing, and this is mostly due to the increase in unplanned outages. So the health of the Eskom fleet is not good.
Are you able to say anything about the rate at which things seem to be deteriorating?
Well, from looking at, if you look at the graph, it's kind of seems to be bottoming out. So, the Eskom, or the energy availability factor, dropped below 60%, weighted average for this year. But the lowest of the low is slightly above 50%. So it's too early to say if we've come a turnaround point in terms of the energy availability factor, but it's definitely slowing down. So that's, I suppose, some good news.
There, of course, those that look at the warnings that Eskom has given us, and just yesterday there was that media briefing where Eskom confirmed that it will no longer be able to procure diesel to keep some of its gas turbines running, which means that there's the risk of even greater load shedding. Is there a way of working around projections or even modeling of what then we as South Africans can anticipate based on the current data?
So Eskom's in a difficult position. So load shedding is on the one hand, so that they can choose to keep on burning diesel, but then the cost of electricity would go up. So they're really trying to play a balancing game here. In terms of, how things are going to improve, essentially, a lot of effort, and government has done a lot of commitment in terms of electricity crisis plan. But unfortunately, even if things were to turn around today, there's this long lead time items. So, us getting a clean check of health for the electricity system will take quite a few years.
Are we able to disaggregate the data enough, for instance, to say, well, if if we're facing a situation of load shedding and the use of diesel, and again these the turbines that have been used to keep some of our lights on will no longer be an option, what exactly then that means for us?
Yeah, we've got models that can look into that and sort of say, well, essentially stop the fuel supply for diesel. So you turn that lever off, and then you see what the result would be and what the impact would be. But obviously, because we're sort of on the edge. I mean, it's a crisis. I think we sometimes forget that load shedding is an emergency response. It's become an everyday term, but it really is an emergency response. It's the measure of last resort. So you change anything or reduce any kind of capacity, it will have a significant impact.
A lot has been spoken about the just transition and, of course, a move to renewables. From the data that you have seen over the last couple of years, what would you say has been the state of supply to the grid of some of the renewable energy sources, and are we seeing an increase in that?
So we know enough data now to say that South Africa has some of the best wind and solar resources in the world. I mean, so that's fairly well established. The uptake of renewables, we might think it's fairly high, but as you mentioned, only 6% of electricity came from solar PV, wind, and CSP last year. So I think we can definitely, there's room for more renewables. And the electricity crisis has moved from a sort of capacity crisis to an energy crisis. So every kilowatt hour from any kind of generator will assist the electricity crisis. So getting more renewables online, or any generator, would assist, and we're seeing again government making smart moves here in terms of doubling the amount in bid window 6.
All right, Warrick Pierce, we'll have to leave it there for tonight. Thanks for your time.